Hi everyone. Today I'm sharing with you my journey to discover the meaning of life. I mean the purpose of education. It sometimes feels like those two things have an awful lot in common. Well, for me at least personally. Anyway, let's get back on track. Let me be incredibly honest with you. I'm overwhelmed immensely by this question. It felt like being asked how I know yellow is yellow by the kids I work with. This is a question so big and complex that it haunted me by the ghosts of teachers past, present and future. Though, I feel like there is a simple answer. Education is everything. From the moment 5-year-old me sat down and watched the magic school bus for the first time, I knew that education was a living, breathing organism, and that people like Miss Frizzle would be out there waiting for kids like me with creativity and ambition and a want to know literally everything in them. So, in honour of my favourite literary teachers like Miss Honey and Miss Frizzle, and the real living and breathing teachers like Mr. Q, my Year 7 teacher, and Malone and Rexa from high school, let's begin. I started by recalling some of Mr. Q's wise words to answer this question. Ones he often said once, twice, 100 times. Okay, but Darcy, what are you actually trying to say? Maybe you need to write something down. And so I started with spilling my every thought onto a mind map. One that would make my high school house teachers incredibly proud. Words like learning and growth began to emerge pretty frequently as I went on in my mind map. This was a great place to start, but I swear, I was transported back to 2016 in the back of modern history, listening to Mr. Rexa tell me while words have meanings, I am the person in charge of providing the context. So I need to be a little bit more sure of what I'm trying to say. Off I went, reflecting and thinking and reflecting and thinking some more, until I called my little brother. He mentioned our favourite shared English teacher, Mr. Malone. Mr. Malone saw through my independence, encouraged me to do two things, ask for help and to soundboard. Soundboarding meaning, let's just talk to everybody that could possibly listen to me and see what they think. And so that's what I did. I asked everyone I could to get their answers, and oh my goodness, did everyone have something to say. I work with children, and so I asked a couple, what is the purpose of education? And for the most part, their answers revolved around the idea of qualification. To learn, at least 6 of my little friends said. Much to Paget's delight, I can tell you, as the children got older, their answers became more complex and included a wider range of topics, such as getting jobs and becoming rich and not wanting to be poor. One of my older children surprised me immensely when they stated the purpose of education is to become someone that is able to be a good adult. The older the child, the more they included elements of subjectification. My kiddos, they believe the purpose of education is to learn. But once again, I felt my inner Kath Murdoch spark to life and felt like, you know what, we could dig a little bit deeper in our inquiry. So, I turned to someone who is incredibly wise, much older than my children, who would have a great opinion. My dad, who I called up, and he said, Darcy at 6 a.m. in WA, please call me back later, which wasn't really the best start, but I persisted, much to literally everyone's delight. When I saw my brother-in-law and asked him what the purpose of education is, he told me that it is to help my nephew learn right and wrong. This was an incredibly insightful answer for a man who told me when I was in high school that his attendance could be tracked by what the tides were doing at any given moment. But a wonderful answer nonetheless. Anyway, so I kept going, asking my mum, my grandma, friends, strangers, and finally I circled back to my dad because it was now 12 p.m. and he was thinking better. As my elder dad, please share your wisdom with me, I begged. To which he responded with a snort, of course. Though he did share a story about me when I was a child. He mentioned how we had this routine in the mornings, one he loved, because with 3 other siblings, it was rare to get one-on-one time. Every morning before he went to work, he would help me tie my shoelaces. He did this from kindy until year 3 because I struggled with the old motor skills, and that is fine. But he told me that he remembers this day so clearly in his mind, that I bound up to him. I was so excited, and he said I was the happiest little kid in the world in that moment to him. And I showed him what I learnt at school from someone's mum. I'd learned how to tie my shoelaces. Dad reckons that was a really hard moment for him because one hand he felt a little bit sad, but he was so incredibly proud of me that I'd finally mastered this skill that I'd had so much trouble with. And so my dad said, I think the purpose of education is to help you figure things out, to help you become someone who can make choices that you are happy with, and to give you the skills that allow you to make those choices. This story caught me off guard because it was surprisingly something that fit so well with the idea of subjectification. This was a concept that more parents spoke on than the children, an idea that they saw beyond English, math, science. They saw the real world implications of education. Not only was that wonderful, but how it aligns with theorists such as Vygotsky caught me off guard and made this very, very great point in this assignment. Anyway. Thanks, Dad. Sorry, I will not call at 6 a.m. ever again. Though, despite me asking approximately 9,000 people this question, I felt deeply in my soul that there was something missing, that there were aspects that I couldn't see right now. I was getting to my wit's end a little bit, and I finally gave back in, circled back, and called Riley, my little brother. I should mention that he is a 26-year-old man with 3 degrees and a master's in teaching, but nonetheless, I called my little brother. I never once complain about anything I do for uni, and he definitely is never sarcastic with me. So when he said, Darcy, do kids go to school alone? Do they only have one adult in the room? Or he practiced that really fun skill of waiting and scanning on me over the phone somehow, and it hurt my feelings. But it seems that it worked, and probably what I'm going to put in my teacher toolkit in the future. As a certain word began to rattle around my noggin. People. Socialization. That was my missing piece. Socialization. This is an underpinning factor of my personal philosophy, so it's slightly ridiculous that I didn't have this as my number 1 point. Yet, it seems that a lot of people seem to forget this. For instance, none of my parents mentioned it. None of the children said I get to play with my friends at school. But do you know who did remember this part of school? The teachers. The educators. Like my wonderful mother-in-law, who's been a teacher's aide for 15 years in prep and is brilliant at everything she does and loves it to this day. She mentioned that her favourite thing about starting the year will always be watching the kids get to know each other. Seeing how our little preppies start to feel more comfortable talking to others, laughing, trying new things, all while by being cheered on by other tiny little humans that are just filled with wonder and a want to know. The point of education is to breed a community, one that is built on a common goal: the pursuit of knowledge. The more people from education I spoke to, like bosses and colleagues, the more the word socialization or a variation of that was thrown around. This idea is supported by so many really clever people like Dewey and Vygotsky and Bronhoff and Benner. And so it seems a little bit ridiculous that as an underpinning factor of my personal philosophy, as an undisputed part of school, I forgot the collaborative nature of socialization. So, to summarize, it seems that I was right. Education is everything. But everything can be broken down a little bit more, and it changes depending on who you are. For instance, those in charge of writing the Australian curriculum will likely inform you that the purpose of education is to create informed citizens. This aligns well with all three areas of education I've mentioned today: qualification, socialization, and subjectification. Though, that perspective is certainly from a governmental view. If you ask the wonderful and passionate members of the Declaration of Alice Springs, they will encourage you to further consider ideas regarding the well-being and student-centric ideals. And really, if you were to ask my conspiracy theorist of an older sibling, the words cog and machine would be thrown around pretty liberally. And this is, unfortunately, an idea people in our general public do have. But it's not the one that I see. If I had to give you one answer, one that is entirely my own, free of everything, but also built on everything that I've mentioned, it would be that education is everything. Wait, don't sigh. I've got a point. There is more. Education is everything from the little moments, like a child learning to tie their shoes, to the sayings and advice from past teachers that, have shaped the way I think, to the fact that we're all here, being, belonging, and becoming today. We are being people who persist and following through on our dreams. And that is education to me. So, in one simple, easy sentence, with some help from my Year 5 English skills, I will tell you, the purpose of education has no one explanation or answer. So I suggest that we rework the question itself. Let's take away the question altogether and respond to a statement. Education is the purpose of everything that humanity wants to be. Education is the purpose, because life would be incredibly different without the values and skills that education helps us learn and develop, such as our willingness to listen and explore and become. Without this, without education, the world looks awfully bleak to me. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day, everyone.